All right. Well, welcome, folks. We have quite a few more people that had registered, so we may have some more people join us here. But I want to provide Julie some time to deliver her message and have time for us to have some rich conversations. And Julie is not from CalCAPA. I'll let her introduce herself and her organization, but is coming in. We did not have space to fit this presentation into our annual conference, but we really felt that it was important that we offer this out to our California network because of all the requests that we get. So for that reason, we're recording this. If you like what Julie's got going on here, I'll have a survey at the end of the training, so you can provide a little bit of feedback, and I'll share that with Julie as well. So without further ado, Julie, would you like to introduce yourself and what it is that we'll be talking about today?
Sure. So my name is Julie Jakopic. I have been working in community action in one way or another for almost exactly 30 years. Creepy, though that is. I started in community action as the person where all your data landed on my desk for the annual report. And way back in those ancient times was also part of thinking about how we think about the outcomes of our work. And we could have a whole conversation about Roma that we're not going to have. I think my hope had been that it would become more baked into what we do and kind of normal, as opposed to this thing over here. But I do think that what you do is really important. And for me, the reason I do what I do is to help make that easier, better, more successful. In real life, I do two things. Through another company, I work with OCS directly, and just finished doing some training and designing some training for new federal staff around the law and what community action is. And then I have a company called I Lead Strategies that I started really for two reasons. I like teaching and I don't get to do that in my other role. And because for many years early in my career, I kept the list of agencies in trouble. And I have a deep commitment to agencies do really good work, and the mistakes of a leader shouldn't bring down an agency. So I'm deeply committed to the strength of community action agencies. And as I look around, and so right now I'm doing needs assessments with several community action agencies. I've been doing this training. I did a 2-day workshop in Georgia around managing. Part of the reason I'm focused on this particular question of managing and managing in the middle right now is because as we transition generations in leadership, people move up faster than they used to. And that means that you have more people working for you and your work is more public and therefore a mistake is a bigger risk. And you had less time to learn how to do this work, right? And so anything I can do to try to create the space for you to ask questions, for you to feel safe going, oh God, you know that thing, or what do I do with that person? Or I didn't realize I was giving up that, right? To sort of sort through the roles of leading, then we keep your organization strong. And that, I believe, is how we achieve the outcomes. Because if there's chaos at the top of your agency, it's really hard to deliver for clients who are also coming in the door in crisis. So that's kind of what might be worth knowing about me. I do have slides. I told Lawrence that I would ask you guys for your emails later and send them to you. But I'd much rather see your faces and have a conversation. It also means that I can decide what to teach a little bit based on what you talk about. And so I'm not going to use them unless I think there's something really important on them. I would like to hear a couple things from you guys. You all told me where you're from, but what your role is, how long you've been managing, and what or who you manage.
Well, I can go first if you want. I'm Kate Steffen. I am the new CFO for Community Action Agency of Butte County. I started on October 26th, so I'm here in about a month and a half ish. I've been in the nonprofit sector for over 15 years as a financial executive. Not just as a financial executive, but longer than that, as working from the ground up. So I started from the very bottom. So I guess you would call me more of a transactional CFO. So. Who do I manage the fiscal or the finance department. So I have 3 folks that report to me. My prior experience is also being the chief operations officer as well as HR.
Cool. So you get the sort of the spine of the organization really is a lot of your role.
Right.
I can go next. My name is Bantuan from Lachinda. I'm working with Community Action Marines as a site area manager. I think I get into this role in about 3 to 5 years, no more than that. I used to be a teacher in the classroom and kind of build myself up, and I'm managing like the teachers, site assistant, out in everyone's in the in the site, just to day operations and follow through protocols, things like that.
So are you a Head Start site?
Yeah.
So not, so a lot of the Head Start program is provided by community action agencies, but not every agency is a Head Start provider, so sometimes. What about Butte? Do you guys have Head Start as well?
Not anymore.
Not right now. Well, Javier, that leaves you.
Oh, yay. Hello, Julie. So my name is Javier. I am the HR manager. So I have been here since July and I am new to nonprofits. Before this, I was in the private for-profit sector, have been managing individuals as it pertains to operations for almost 10 years now. Yes, have learned a ton, have been with organizations where I directly oversaw as little as, a dozen folks, and then as many as a little bit over 1,100 folks. So have had my share of experience, but am very, very happy where my career has led me. I really find purpose in what we do. So very, very happy.
How big is the Butte agency? Like how many staff?
Staff currently we have 37.
So pretty, as community action goes, relatively small.
It is, yes, we're growing. We're more in a rural area, but the area that we serve is very broad. So there's a lot of logistics as far as, we have 2 sites and they're about 30 minutes away from each other. So a lot going on.
Cool. Lawrence, would you like to play as a participant? Or you want
Sure.
to just be a host?
But since we're a small group today, I'd love to play along. I manage projects for CalCAPA. I'm an illustrious department of 1, and I've had experience managing small teams and remote teams, and that's been a lot of fun. But that's back in my corporate days. Now I'm on unofficial dotted line type stuff all over the place, committees and so on and so forth. So,
Well, what's the biggest difference do you think for you?
in what regard? How do you?
Corporate versus association.
I think that there's a lot more structure and streamlined communication in corporate. People use the same terms, right? And that has been a big difference between corporate and then coming to nonprofit, in a nonprofit world that values its local identity, and so that balance has been an interesting dance,
So not so much the nonprofit, but the Thousand Flowers Bloom model of community action.
Yeah.
That's fun. How about for you, Javier? Because you've made this big switch too.
Honestly, I think that the pressure, like Lawrence is saying, is much different. I think at nonprofits, the pressure is very much there's a lot more grace. And I think folks are a lot more understanding. In the profit world, it's I need that yesterday, and it can be very stressful at times. So I was previously, before this, I was with Google, and it's a very big corporation, and well, everything that goes along with that, the stress and everything else.
Cool. How does that resonate for for the rest of you?
For me, I mean, one of my shifts from for-profit to nonprofit was when I worked for a for-profit organization. It was a very large project that would happen, and actually was with a civil engineering firm at the time. And there were 5 partners, and it was a very large thing, and it was all hands on deck type of a situation. And basically they got the job done, and partners were patting themselves on the back, giving themselves $1 million bonuses, when in fact they weren't really even acknowledging the staff that really made it possible. They basically, I think if I recall, they gave out $10 gift cards to Starbucks, not even a lunch as a thank you. At that point, I sat there going, this is not what I want. You know, I want something bigger. I want to be able to, you know, do something different. Simultaneously, at the time, my younger son was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. So then he's 19, almost 20 now. So he's more high functioning. He's actually attending community college. So he's working towards it. But so then I became an advocate and became more involved into his services, which then I sat there going, this is kind of where I want to go. You know, where do I want to be? So I also, prior to landing here at the Community Action Agency here in Butte, I was also the Director of Finance for the Community Action in Marin County and down in San Rafael, where there's over 200 employees. And so when Javier was mentioning how it is intense with Google, or maybe the nonprofit has a saving grace and I want it yesterday, I don't know, it depends, because when I was there, that's the CEO who is, you know, managing that area. She was that way. She was very high demanding. I want it yesterday. So I don't know, it kind of depends, but you know, it's all about the mission, the purpose. It's all about serving the community and helping those folks that really need it.
Cool. Buntuan, how are you seeing your role as the manager of a site versus being in a classroom?
Well, now it's like supporting everyone's. Before I just like know my role, I just do my thing. I be responsible for what I supposed to in my classroom and things like that. But now it's like my thought was like everywhere, like supporting everyone for them to do that job, so less stress, understand their stress levels, and kind of supporting like I think it's like 12 people, and 12 to 15 people. Sometimes it's kind of a lot, because I used to be managing myself, and now it's like I kind of supporting, and it's like me try to divide myself into more than one person.
We have this habit of promoting the person who's best at the job to manage the other people, and we never really tell them that their job isn't the job anymore. Their job is the other people. Right? This sort of weird kind of, and it is different. You have a lot less control over what's going on. Although actually, Lawrence, you have more than you used to, because it's you or you.
That's a double-edged sword. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. What made you decide you wanted to come to this?
Because I never been trained to be once when I was getting promotion. So I was like, let me see what can I do, or what's other thing that I need to learn.
Yeah. Good. What excites you guys about your roles? Because they're all relatively new. What's exciting to you?
I thoroughly enjoy that my work is very meaningful, that I'm helping people, that are changing people's lives. And I know that a lot of people and organizations, it's a euphemism, they like to say it, but they don't really live it. And here, the folks that I see, the folks that I've interacted with, they truly live this mission. And you know, I was raised in a very social conscious home, and you know, my mom was a social worker for 25 years. So it's part of our calling, and it's part of what my core self is. So I really felt that it was I can mirror what my passion is with the skill set that I've acquired to really help and do a lot of outreach. I know for me personally, one of my largest goals is to have a real effect on what my community is, being of indigenous Latino descent. That's definitely something that I would love to help pioneer in this area, doing a lot of outreach for. So definitely working towards that goal.
Gosh, that's a great question that you asked, Julie. As far as, what my goal or my mission. Number one, it's always been serving the community and the mission. One of the challenges that I have is because I'm in fiscal or in finance, we are the behind the scenes. So we're not in the front. Whereas in other nonprofit organizations, I was in the kind of, I don't want to call the trenches, but you're in the front lines, working with the clients day to day and really seeing those immediate changes when a client first comes in and asks for assistance or help to all of a sudden a few months later, here you are, and there's this wonderful, awesome success story, and how those services and programs change their lives. So for me, I have to shift gears and go, okay, we're the behind the scenes. So we're managing those funds in order to make sure that those, happen. But at the same time, when I'm leading the fiscal, not only am I trying to teach and guide, I'm one of those ones that I don't just stand up on a podium and delegate to people. I am getting the trenches with my team, and I lead and guide and direct while working alongside of them. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that I've just uncovered, throughout my years, is a lot of folks would think because of this high level that I don't understand or I don't do the work, and I stay up here and I don't do anything except delegate my work and take credit for everything. No, that's far from it. We're a team, and it's all about recognizing and not acknowledging that. And I know fiscal is so like on an island sometimes that people forget about them, and everything funnels through fiscal. So my goal is to make sure that they're recognized and acknowledged for the work they do and how their contributions tie into helping the community.
And so your role really is about sort of framing the work so they are aware of their impact, not just
That's right.
the
It's not just a
payroll they
paycheck.
process today,
Yeah.
right? And figuring out how to keep that meaning for them.
Right.
Also sounds like it's a little bit hard for you to be a little bit further away.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah. It's a challenge. I mean, I loved working with folks, up front, but this is where my strength is, and so I'm here. And I'm happy to be here.
Well, and it's also okay to like be challenged. This space, what's
Oh,
said here
yes.
stays here. So, I mean, the idea is that it should be safe to, like, if this were easy, we wouldn't do training on it. Right. Benton, what excites you about your role? It sounds like having 12 direct reports is sometimes stressful. What's exciting to you?
For me, it's like to help supporting them to do their best, to be their best support. And then sometimes I just give some advice from my own experience and help them through whatever difficulties through the job and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Lawrence, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, from coming from an association, if you feel removed, imagine being completely outside of the organization altogether, right? And then support it. So I feel, Kate, what you were saying about that really resonated in terms of like valuing when you get to do work alongside the people that you're supporting, right? So when I get an opportunity to come out into the field, and whether that's to do training, which is kind of my primary role in the organization, or if it's just to show up because the agency is having a special event and we're showing some support for a special event, I have equal amounts of satisfaction out of doing that and understanding kind of the end result of the work that we do. When I get to see us working with clients like putting food bags in the backs of cars and that kind of stuff like that. It's a huge connection point for me. Back and it's very grounding to the work that we do, especially to do that from time to time.
So it sounds like this sort of helping people feel connected to the work is a common theme. And so maybe we should spend some time thinking about like the motivation pieces and how we help people connect to that. Because you guys are all motivated and you're motivated by the purpose. I also suspect that when there's an audit coming or there's an unhappy employee, it's sometimes very easy to get caught up in that space. So does that feel like a good way to use some of our time? So there's a guy named Dan Pink. Dan Pink was a speechwriter in the Clinton administration a million years ago, and he's gone on to write about work. And one of my favorite books of his, it's funny, I like most of them. I actually don't like the most recent one, but he's written a book called Drive. And he did research about like what motivates folks. And as managers, a lot of times your job is helping, it is always really about helping your team do what needs to be done. And frankly, Lawrence, it's still you because your job is to get a bunch of volunteers to do stuff for nothing all the time. Right? Like, like the job of an association is to convince the members that they want to do stuff over and above their already exhausted job. So let's spend a little time thinking about that. It turns out that there's sort of 3 components to what motivates folks. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Let's talk about the 3 of them, because I suspect, Lawrence, this is actually what you like, is the autonomy. You're building a thing that didn't exist, and you get to build it the way you want to build it, right? The challenge of being a site leader is you're on site. You don't have a lot of support on site with you. You are it, right? If it happens on the site, you're the person we go to, but you also get to decide what you're going to do about it. And that ability to make decisions about our work is a big deal. So what do I mean by autonomy? I mean 2 things: flexibility and self-determination. So the self-determination is you decide. The flexibility is you also have reports have to be written when they have to be written, invites have to go when they have to go, but whether you do that at 2 in the afternoon or 3 in the afternoon, nobody really cares. You have the right, you guys in your roles get to decide those things. And that's not always true for the people you're leading. So I wonder if we might have a conversation about how flexible and how much self-determination the people you're leading get and how we can help make that more possible.
Well, I'm thinking about autonomy, of course, with fiscal. It's like that's really difficult or challenging, I should say, for that flexibility, because a lot of times there's deadlines you have to have when you're dealing with audits or month end and things like that. So flexibility on anything is almost like, what is that? It's non-existent. However, there are certain things that I'm trying to create. So number 1 is, okay, here's a list of all of our things, our projects, our tasks that we need to get done by the end of the month. And then, okay, here's those specific deadlines by the 10th of every month or whatever for the prior activity. So those unfortunately are kind of set in stone, and those are rather challenging. However, and I'm trying to look at certain things to be able to give breathing room because it's such a small outfit. So one of the challenges stepping in here that I had was I had 1 person on vacation and 2 unfortunately had COVID. And here I'm new. I am not able to find written procedures and policies for what to do to try to step in and be a backup for anything. So one of the challenges that I had was trying to manage dealing with payroll and all these other things that had to get done. So everything was kind of at a standstill. So now that everybody's healthy and back and whatnot, one of the primary goals was to cross-train the entire fiscal department to mirror to mirror those, get everyone cross-trained on the daily functional activities or the tasks. That way, if somebody's out sick or on vacation or whatever have you, whoever's doing like paying the bills or doing accounts payable, that person's, it's okay. That person's not going to come back to a pile of stuff or, oh my gosh, this is past due, so now this work has been halted for whatever reason. I'm trying to give that breathing and flexibility time to be able to go, hey, you know, it's okay. You can have that time to be able to take off, to take care of yourself, because unfortunately fiscal at this point was burning, and they were burnt, you know, working long hours and not even being able to be allowed to take time off. And they were working even from home being sick. So, which is unexcusable to me. So right now, as far as that flexibility, I'm giving them that support. I'm wanting to implement that so they can have that flexibility and that breathing room. So right now at this time, that's what I'm working on.
Cool. And you recognized it as a thing you needed to do pretty quickly, and that's one of the reasons you have this role.
Yeah, and then implementing or creating policies and procedures. That way something's in writing too, which will help with the cross-training process too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And HR is another one that's pretty rule driven. But where can you be flexible, and where can you help people have some control over their work life?
Absolutely. I think that we have to be very rule driven. So the way I approach my task, my role is I take a look at what is our policy. However, within our policy, there's always resources that we can share with our team to help them develop and help them feel heard and just help them and their day-to-day struggles. So when I take a look at someone having performance issues, I always take a look at what have I done to help this person be successful? What things are in place to help this person be successful? Is it someone that we are overlooking? Maybe they're burnt out. Maybe this isn't the correct role for them. So that's where a lot of the training and as managers, we have to be very, very astute to where this particular person is, where their headspace is, where they're at the moment. And always pair them with resources to help them be successful, while also holding them accountable to next steps, because I want to make somebody feel a partner in their own success, because ultimately if I give them all the tools but they aren't prepared to use them, then they won't be successful. So I really try to work on that open door policy and make myself a person that is a very approachable, so that people feel that confidence and that they will receive honest but sincere direction.
So we've hit on a lot of things. The cross-training piece allows people flexibility. Also, it's going to matter someplace else in a second, but creating the standard operating procedures so people know what the standards are. Might not surprise you. As you get to know me, you'll know that I like rules to bump up against them. I want to know where the line is. I won't cross the line, but I might get next to it, but I got to know what it is, or I can't take any risks, right? Like, and ironically, knowing the rule enables me to think about how we can do something in a different way. Right. So SOPs are really helpful. And I love the partnering with people in their own success. Right. That gives them responsibility for themselves.
Yep.
And creates a much more, you guys have some good management skills. You know, sometimes the people who come to these are the people who already know, right? Like, right? But really, I want to call them out, because I think sometimes what also happens when you're new is your instincts are really good. You're going to do all the right stuff, but like, oh, you mean there's a reason I should be doing this, right? So that idea of partnering with people and being with them where they are, so they're driving it, which also comes from Javier, even though you were not really a direct service provider, I don't think, at least not at Google, it comes from that same kind of mentality about how we bring people forward. And I'm curious, Bentuan, about how this sounds to you. Like,
For me, it's like flexibles because I'm frontline, kind of on site and kind of support all the frontline. So my flexibility is like, and frontline is like 12 or 15 people that have different story, different responsibility, different life. That's, different. So it's like I have to be flexible with them and flexible with my schedule and everything else for operations day to day. For this, like, and I just put my self-determination, what I have to do. Sometimes I just put aside, I have my goal that I have to do it, finish by a certain time. But however I'll do it, but I'm supporting operation first, and then I'll just push whatever I have to do to myself, to my time.
given that Head Start has something like it won't, I suspect this number is small relative to reality because I learned it a long time ago, something like 273 performance standards. Your teachers don't have a ton of flexibility. So how do you create space for them to have some self-determination? I mean, the kids are coming when they come, they are leaving when they leave. There's not a lot of schedule flexibility. There's standards about what they have to learn during their day. There's standards for where you put a trash can. Literally, if you have not worked in Head Start, like trash cans and lids are a big deal, right? Because kids can get hurt. So there's rules about things that regular people wouldn't assume there's rules about. How can you build in some flexibility for them?
I think time and see the skill of each teachers and the group dynamic. I have to look at all the things, different classroom, different coworker, and how are they working. And the children in the classroom, it's combination of things that I need to look into, because sometimes the kids, even though the number are large, but if the kids it's trained and they're, it's the flow of the classroom and things like that. Some classroom that have the kids that, take a nap in, good amount of 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, that could be a good time that the teacher can do something. Some classroom that doesn't have that, so I have to send, some people, some people need help in certain time. So it's kind of, I have to put myself on the floor and look around and see what's going on and see what's the flow of the day and the dynamic of the group and the children's, and such that to make it flexible and accommodate everyone.
So you're doing a lot. It sounds like you might be doing a lot around ratios.
Yeah, that's too.
About making sure there's enough adults in the room for the number of kids. Do you serve primarily 4 and 5-year-olds, or do you have early Head Start too?
I do early Head Start. Yeah.
So only
infant
early Head
toddler,
Start.
yeah.
So if you're not familiar, that means she has mostly kids under 4. And so the babies take a 2-hour nap and the 3-year-olds can't sit still for 2 hours. Like 15 minutes might be a long time for some of those 3-year-olds, right? They need the nap, but getting them to take the nap is a whole different animal with 3-year-olds, right? Yeah. Do your teachers cross-train at all? Do they move from room to room at all? Is that something that would be interesting, do you think?
Some group might, but most of the teachers that I have, they were together for 5+ years. They work together. And I have the teacher that's been with us for like more than 10 years. So it's they kind of have the things done, yeah.
So it's more the other way around, where like they have their routine and you're adapting to them in a lot of ways more than might be. Cool. So autonomy is one of the motivators. The second one, and it gets back to that SOPs and the cross-training piece that you were talking about, Katie, is mastery. And that's about learning. It's about being challenged. It's about being recognized. And it is about, to a certain extent, what are the opportunities to grow,
Right.
right? It sounds like you all have a learning mindset for how you lead. The challenge, and particularly with longstanding teachers, for example, the challenge part is I think sometimes hard with teams that have been in place for a long time and done the same thing for a long time. The place where you're so into what you're doing that you forget to eat. or you forget what time it is. There's a sociologist, a guy named Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, and that's what the flow state is. That's sort of a flow state. As we come up on the Olympics, you can tell when somebody steps on the ice, how their routine is going to go. You can see it. They're either in their body, fully present, or they're out with the judges and the audience, and they're not like, and I challenge you when it happens this winter to see if you can see it, because it's that being so fully present, you're in the moment. And what that turns out to be is being in the place that is just outside your capacity. It's that spot right beyond what comes easy to you. Like, and so it requires that higher level of attention. And we all love that space. So how we replicate that for the folks that work with us, or find at least some moments where they are lost in their work, or feel
Julie,
challenged by it, is, I think, an interesting piece.
Julie,
Javier.
I think you bring up a fantastic point, and I think that when teams have worked together for so long, we do fall into these roles and these rhythms of, this is what I've done, this is, my little piece of the river, and they're steadfast, but people do get bored of that, and we want some change. We want to be challenged. Something that I'm learning in the DEI courses that I'm taking is that being happy at your job, one of the most important factors is being challenged. So I think it's very important as a manager to start mixing up roles. A lot of times somebody will hold so tightly to a role, not necessarily because it's what they enjoy, but it's because what they know. So giving someone else the opportunity to take on a special project, maybe every year the same person always decorates for Christmas. Why don't we switch that up? Finding things that make people really ignite a passion will reinvigorate their need, their want to be there. And this is and also I'm very much a sociologist like yourself. There's a sociologist at Teatro Campesino, and he said people will never be able to identify with a role that they can't physically act out. So what this person would do was go around to migrant farm workers and hold plays, and he would have the folks that worked in the fields every day take on the persona of the boss to give them a different perspective. And it's that whole totality of thought, giving them perspective and idea that they can grow with greater than what the role that they currently have. So yeah, it's great point.
As I'm listening to you, Javier, and you bring that up, and it's also with Julie, regarding mastery, my mind immediately started going, what am I doing to help my team? What am I helping as far as their, whatever mastery development or whatever have you. And I immediately, and also, trying to it's like asking them, instead of me telling them what to do, I want to hear from them, and it's trying to get out of that same old. I'm sorry, you input a bill, you pay the bill, you send off the check. It's very repetitive, but at the same time, it's like, there's so much more to fiscal than just doing that. And so for me right now, because I'm so new with this team, I have do I have departmental weekly meetings with them just to talk about where we are with our updated, deadlines and things like that. But it's also coming together when we have some major issues or projects and whatever. And I want to hear everybody's input. What do you think about it? I've also established weekly one-on-one recurring meetings with them, so I can talk to them and create a safe space for them, so that way I'm earning their trust and I'm giving them my full undivided attention and listening to their concerns, their frustrations, their suggestions, on how we can improve, and then how do we do that. I also want to open up the door to allow staff development and training for them, for if they want to expand and grow. I'm tired of doing this. I want to go and do what he's doing, in the other department. I want to help them with that. So.
And it's a great way for people to learn because the other person's still there, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
opportunities. Anything in here resonating, Benton?
For me, I create a space for the staff, for the teachers. Sometimes I'm asking them what their professional goals are, what they want to be, some from associate teachers, what kind of route they want to take. So encourage them on that and suggesting them about some classes that they can take. And yeah, so it's kind of motivate them to grow too, because as a teachers, we need to have that mentality of like want to learn, want to grow to pass on to our students.
Yeah, and it's a way of creating new, even though their work has been pretty stable. They've been there a long time. Cool. The next piece of this is recognition. And I find in community action, everybody hates it. They like to recognize other people. But don't call me out in a meeting. Don't say I did anything special. And I can think of executive directors I've worked with who had very different agencies and did really cool things. We're like, no, that's okay. I don't want any attention. So at all levels, it's not just the front line who like, no, I come here to make a difference in their lives. Don't call me out. Recognition's important for a bunch of reasons, and it's not just for the person you're recognizing. It's for everybody else too. Because it tells them what the expectations are. It tells them that they can earn a reward. I think, most of us don't come to this work because we had perfect lives. It's pretty unusual to find somebody in community action that doesn't have a little bit of a story about how they connect to community action. And so being called out, being recognized, most people also come because they want to serve, is sometimes really uncomfortable. And yet, I tell the truth, they kind of like that you noticed. They wish you didn't do it in public, but then they see that oh, well, that's valued. Maybe I should do more of that. So I'm wondering, and the other challenge I think in community action is that there's parts of community action that have big career ladders, but it's not everywhere. So how do you promotions are a form of recognition, but how do you recognize day-to-day stuff? How do you acknowledge somebody's effort? And how do you do that with your team? How might you do that in a way that's private or public? Because it's not going to be, nobody's getting 15% raises, right? Like it's not going to be the $1 million bonus. So what are the ways we recognize people?
Well,
Julie,
Lawrence?
if you don't mind, I've got an idea on this that we use from the association, and maybe it will help spur some thought as well. Because we don't have a whole lot of opportunity to provide direct recognition, one of the ways that we recognize good work is by elevating it. And we do that in a couple of ways. One of those is like inviting folks to speak at our annual conference to disseminate what it is they're doing because we find it so impressive. So to your point, Julie, that's exactly what we're doing. We're saying, yes, do more like this, right? But we're finding someone who's already strong and impassioned about that. And that kind of hits the dopamine receptors, I think, as well. So there's that. And then we also seek to recognize work in other ways too, like amplifying it through social media and whatnot. But being able to offer someone the opportunity to present what it is that they do seems to be engaging for a certain set of our folks that we work with. So it's certainly not everybody. I'm not saying it's a panacea and that you should just tell people to present on their stuff. That's not what I mean.
No, for
For
some
those
people,
that
it's
really
not,
like
yeah.
to, like we pull them in to give them that platform. So that's one way that we like to do that.
Well, and even if they don't actually speak,
Yeah,
right? So in a perfect world, you ask them to speak and they deliver a uproariously applauded session.
sure.
But just being asked tells them they're special. in a way that people don't hear. One of the things I do often in this work and others is I will stand in front of a room of 25 people and say, when's the last time has anybody been thanked in the last week? Nobody.
I make sure that I thank my staff. When I ask them to do something, I say, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. But I don't want to sound redundant and constantly use the same type of wording or language to where it just sounds like it's, like I'm a parrot, kind of thing, and it's just kind of like this, that's just a response for everything, kind of whatever, I guess in fiscal, it's difficult to, call out and recognize, unless you're in a group staff gathering type of a situation where you're wanting to acknowledge your staff for a particular reason or project or whatever have you. But for me on my side, just as an intimate, if I'm working with somebody on something and they were awesome. They did whatever work, they weren't sure of it, and they finished whatever task. I'll actually call it out right in front of the staff or in that fiscal. Yes, awesome, you did a great job, way to go, kind of thing. And I'll vocalize it in front of the rest of the fiscal team so they can hear that person did an awesome job. It might be just kind of like a casual, loose thing because we're in a small little area here versus out in a big open with the staff. But trying to do that, buying lunch for them every so often. Hey, let's come together, let's eat as a team, let's relax. Even during the holidays, I like to give, a little something to my team as a gift, as a Merry Christmas. Thank you for all that you do. Because not everybody, does that type of a thing. And some people would think, oh, you're using the company credit card. I'm like, no, this is out of my pocket. This is this is me doing this for you. So it's me showing this is my personal appreciation for you.
And it wouldn't be terrible if the organization recognized me.
I know.
Right.
But there are times when sometimes that organization doesn't do that, or allow you to, or whatever you want to say. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I think all really good things. And it can also be that you tell your colleagues that, this way. Sometimes the work in here is really drudgy and boring and hard and precise. And this person, she does every week she's done an hour early, like whatever it is. So then the person walking down the hall says, hey, I'm gonna hear really good things about you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And that's exhaustive too. Is when if I'm in whatever type of executive team meeting or whatever have you, if something's out, I'll say, hey, and I'll call out their name, so-and-so, Joe Schmo did an awesome job doing XYZ. So if there's any other suggestions, I'm open for to hear them.
Well, I would say that so when you guys get stressed, gratitude is actually is a two-way street. So I actually really like the gratitude piece. There's another body of work around happiness at work. Guy named, any of you aspiring speakers?
No.
Okay, I aspire to be as good as Sean Acor's TED Talk. I'm good. I'm not that good. So it's a guy named Sean Acor. I can put it in the chat. But one of the big things that has to do with happiness at work and actually happiness in life is a sense of gratitude. And it works in both directions. Yeah. How do you feel when you call out your staff?
How do I feel? Pretty good.
Right. Yeah. Right. It is about them, but it's also about you. But even practices where I keep a gratitude journal.
Oh.
3 things I'm grateful for every day. And I have, in the heat of summer, I have air conditioning has made the list, and so has indoor plumbing.
Oh yes.
Made it to midnight. Right?
Well, mine is like the warm bed to sleep in, the roof over the head, the food in the fridge. Those things are very basic, but they're also things to be very grateful for. Yeah. Just you had asked about, what drives people to community action. And I even mentioned it to the staff when I first came on. I'm a recipient of community action 19 years ago. So being on the other end as an actual recipient, receiving those services when I was homeless, I went through a horrific divorce. My kids were an infant and a toddler. and my ex-husband wanted out of the marriage. Sold my family home. I had nowhere else to go. And so I wasn't in a high paying job at all. I was literally making $5 stretch for 3 or 4 weeks, if I was lucky. So coming from that and knowing and having that appreciation, and then working my butt off to, go back to school, get a better degree, get my MBA, and then actually, while I'm simultaneously doing that, but then doing the work. So I'm working from the ground up at the same time and really pushing, because my big focus was my boys and how can I provide for them? How can I help? And then also, how can I give back to the organization that helped us?
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that giving back spirit seems to be the theme today of everybody here.
Yeah.
And yet you also have to fill yourself up too. So recognizing others and then recognizing what's going well. I was in a meeting right before this and I told my colleagues that I really appreciated them. And they're like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, well, it's been a week and I'm having a really hard time on this other thing. And so I wanted to remember that there's also lots of things going right. And you guys are one of them. I think they're economists. I think they thought I was nuts. But I needed to remember that this thing over here is really dumb and really stupid, painful. And yet this work is going really well. And we all have it. So that recognition of other folks. And then obviously advancement being sort of the last piece of the recognition of mastery is that you get to lead it, which none of you complained about. But for some people, that promotion from doing to leading is a loss. I would not be surprised, Antoine, if one of the things you don't miss is being with kids and their families in the same way, right?
Yeah,
It
and
is a
in the
big
classroom,
change,
just the classroom and just the same group.
right? So that advancement is important and it comes with some trade-offs. One of the things that is most present in community action is sort of that third component. So we talked about autonomy, we talked about mastery. The third component is purpose, which is both meaning and impact. And there are very few places that any of us could be working that has as much of those things. But again, as you get further away from families, further away from kids, further away from, it's still sometimes harder. It's actually part of why I do this. Because this is a lot closer than writing a memo for OCS to send to states that might someday make it down to agencies that is unlikely to land on any of your desks except maybe Katie's. And then it's something that wasn't fun, right? Right. So this is part of how I do that. But reminding people, how I think there's no question that your teachers see it every day. But I think in some of these other functions, how do you get to experience, other than somebody like me calling it out? How do you get to stay connected to the real work that you're supporting?
For me, every day I was like on the floor with them, work side by side with them, supporting them, see the family, see the kids go, like, try to go around as much as possible. Every classroom, I kind of rotate myself. So like kind of connect to everyone.
Cool. Javier and Katie and Lawrence, you're a little further away. How do you stay grounded in it?
I wanted to jump in earlier when you were talking about gratitude. I think that we all show gratitude, but perhaps we have different names for it. Mine is definitely mindfulness. I like to ground myself and acknowledge the moments that I'm in. And I think that gives way to being grateful, and it also gives way for me acknowledging and recognizing the moment that I'm in, and having just the ability to step back and say, "Ooh, this is where I'm at." Like, wow, and really being absorbed in what you love to do.
How about with your team?
With my team, I'm always grateful, and I'm always style switching. I'm always mindful of how people accept praise. And some people do real well with public praise, and some people absolutely just want to squirm under their seat and hide. So I'm always mindful. I'm always make a big gesture to begin with, and if I notice someone really didn't, take it that well, then I always take it upon myself to remember that, and then take a private moment to thank them for their work or for what they're doing. And depending on how people take it, I really style shift according to their needs and not my own.
How do you take care of you when you do that?
I have two amazing pups that take me on all sorts of outdoor adventures. And literally, when you're out by the river with two pups that have nothing but right now on their mind, it makes you be in the moment. And I just love being outside. Like that's my thing.
Because I was gonna say that switching is really, it has an energy to it, right? It's not, there's actually an energetic shift that happens when you do that, and all that other energy that was somehow different needs a place to go.
Yes.
Which is
I
also
think,
what happens to the teachers, right?
I think I was a Labrador in a past life. I'm always pretty happy.
I love that, right? When the teachers are absorbing the kids all day right? And then you end up absorbing what's going on with them.
Mhm.
I think it might not be bad to spend a few minutes on self-care before we try to wrap up.
Mm,
So we've got walking, we've got mindfulness, we've got gratitude.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, I have to piggyback with Javier. I am an outdoors person. So for me to kind of reset myself, which also kind of ties in with self-care, is going for walks. Just kind of being out with nature. It's kind of like my sanctuary is being out in the park area. And your mind is just going. You're thinking about things even though you're trying to let go, but your mind is still kind of just continuously thinking things through or problem solving and whatnot. But it's my way to kind of literally unplug, recharge my battery, or self-motivate. I would listen to maybe inspirational, positive music of some sort, and just really kind of try to work on, because as you were saying, you're absorbing their frustrations, their energy, their, everything, and you're taking it on and trying to help them. It's like, what do you do with that? In order for me to relieve that, I can't hold in that stress, I can't hold in that frustration. You need an outlet. And so for me, I need to let it go. And sometimes I'll do yoga for meditation, things like that. So that's kind of where I live.
Yoga, moving, walking outside, getting into the moment,
Breathing.
breathing exercises,
Yeah.
literally like counted breath work. Is that familiar to most of you?
Yeah.
Kind of,
Mhm.
yeah, that sort of breathing into a count of 4, holding to a count of 4, exhaling to a
Mhm.
count of 4, repeating that.
Yeah.
Which is probably the only thing I have in common with a Navy SEAL. It shuts you, it convinces your vagus nerve that you're safe. So it can help deal with the adrenaline rush, or that, like, you can hear your voice go up in a call. My mom was a bit of a challenge, and my late ex-husband was like, I always know when you're talking to her, because in about 3 seconds your voice gets way up here, and you said you're all up here and you're not breathing anymore, and right. And that happens to us at the end of the day, right? Because the work we do is people who are in crisis, and it's very contagious.
I think something
Antoine, what do you do
super,
for you?
I think something very important as well is it's okay to tell yourself it's not okay. I think a lot of times we really demand perfection and everything around us, there has to be results, but sometimes it's just okay to say I'm not okay and I need a moment. Like that is so healthy to be able to admit that and just move on from there. Take your moment and move forward.
Yep. Yep. Antoine, what kinds of things are you doing to take care of you?
Just like go for a walk, step back, reflect on things that are happening. Sometimes it's out of my control, can't do anything. Sometimes I have to think about it that way. So I was like, I tend to be the person who tries to fix everything, and it's very stressful because sometimes, like in the way that we work, sometimes like we get into argument, if not my own, but someone else. There's a lot of story that we listen, a lot of things that's going on, on so many sides. So sometimes like it's not about me, it's not about you, it's not, it just it just out of my control. Sometimes I have to reflect and kind of step back and just it's sometimes you have to let it be, let it roll. So, every situation will have a way out on its own. Just have to sometimes just take time for things to kind of resolve on its own terms.
Okay, still all in your head. I'm a big fan of doing things that are not in your head. So that walk, the mindfulness, the frankly taking a shower, right? The feel of water, the like things you can do in your body where you don't have to think it through are also really good things to do. Epsom salt baths. Like I realize not everybody's gonna go take a bath, but there's the water is a thing. Things that draw things out of you. I live in a town, I live outside DC. So everybody here lives from their shoulders up. Occasionally they have a heart. But it's all in our heads, right? And yet some of this stuff is much more easily dealt with by letting your body do the work and not trying to think it through. And but I love the point that you made about controlling the controllable. But then the rest of it is that walk. It's fine if you're squishing a squishy toy, which one of the small, there usually is one sitting right here. One of the small people in my world has clearly moved it. But like things you can even physically let go of. Really important. Lawrence, what do you do?
I try to take advantage of my negative space. So, and what I mean by that is like when I commute in, I have a 20-minute bike ride to and from the office when I come into an office, and I leverage that time. And I prefer to, consume podcasts or books. It's a great time for me to read books. I've never been a particularly great reader. So ebooks are like the way that I love to learn about a little deeper, sometimes a lot deeper into the areas that I like to explore. And I've got, I don't know, close to 20 years in learning and development. And in my Clifton Strengths profile, my number one is input, which is defining like collecting stuff. And for me, it's collecting knowledge. And so I like to do that because then later I get to leverage that. I know I'm like stashing away. I feel like a squirrel, like stashing away the stuff I'm going to use later. And I know that I'm going to use it later, or maybe I won't, and it doesn't matter. If I never get to use it later, it doesn't really matter. I got some joy out of learning something that is interesting and connected to the stuff that I'm interested and connected to, right? So for me, that works out really, really well. And then for anybody who takes any of my classes or whatever, like I am known to just randomly drop something I've been reading lately, or an article or a video clip or something that maybe relates to what it is that we were talking about. So for me, that's what I love to do. And it's usually in that, like I said, it's in that negative space. So I look to steal those moments that were otherwise occupied by the commute, which I find very boring. So I'm like, okay, let me fill this with something interesting.
So it's safe to do something else. Anybody
Yeah.
here do creative stuff?
I do. I like to draw, paint. I like to dance. Oh, she's painting.
doodle.
She's sending her, yep, doodle.
I doodle.
Yeah. I do like to write. I like to write in a journal. So
Julie, that was full on an art project for someone like me. That was way more than doodle.
So it's one piece of paper. It has 8 little sections. Sometimes if it's thick, I can do the other side, but it's also, it's like another part of my brain doing something.
You could put up my drawings against some of Buntan's students. They are horrible.
I'm a juried artist who can't draw. So I'll just tell you, you don't have to be able to draw. Like I can doodle. I can't want me to draw something you can recognize only because you've seen a representation of it before. I mean, they look like icons at best, right? I have a good sense of color, but I can't draw.
Hey, Picasso's blue period. He got along very well just doodling.
Yep. So, but it's not about doing it. So those little things are crappy paper. If you paid attention, some of them are colored with a highlighter. They're not going anywhere. They're just to be outside me. And I used to have this thing where I wouldn't do art because it might not be good. I'd waste the art product.
Would a personal question here to deviate? If you weren't doing what you were doing, would you be doing something in art? Like a museum
Question.
curator, just
Great
appraising art,
question.
something of that nature?
Oh. Yeah, I have a story there. I have done photography. I have done art. I'm a little competitive creep, so I got myself juried into a local artists collaborative. And the way you can work off your membership is to work in the store. I grew up in a retail family. I love working in the store. I have been working in the store at least a weekend a month for the last 6 months. I delivered actual art to be sold in the store 3 weeks ago.
I was feeling the
The art
energy.
is for me to play with the art, and I have learned to do something with it. But yeah, no. And I put myself through college as a makeup artist, so I clearly playing with color is fun. So that was a
That's
great
awesome.
question. I don't think I've thought about that.
Makeup, putting it on, that's a form of art.
Right. It's all about playing with color. And
Yeah.
I actually believe if I didn't have some of the obligations I do, I'd be a Head Start teacher. Because that's about art too.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's art with a purpose. And I love small people. So. I don't want to keep you over. Anything you wanted to make sure we talked about that we didn't?
Just how grateful we are for you and for Lawrence.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I can't think of anything.
Well,
This
if
this has
you
been a
would
great
share your
experience.
email with me, I'll share slides. I'll share the references that I made as well. And I think those were, she sent me Hi Acor and Dan Pink. I can send those things to you.
Now, would you like me to put mine in or ours in the chat?
Sure, that would be
Okay,
perfect.
great.
That would be perfect. And I will happily do that. I'm going to put mine in there too. I mean, you'll get an email from me, but if you have questions or I don't remember something I said or want more, that's how to find me. Lawrence, anything else you want in the next 3 minutes?
No, nothing in particular, Julie. Thank you so much for the thought-provoking questions. I think it really does help us as managers, and you called us out here as like a team of, maybe some experienced management folk. It is so refreshing to like come through and take it easy for a minute and think about the things that really drive us to be better at what it is that we're doing, because it's so easy to forget. If I see another grant deadline thing come across my plate to distract me from living life, like, that drives me nuts. So appreciate this time to slow down a minute.
No, you're absolutely welcome. And yeah, I think it is these minutes that make us better at our work, particularly at least in the space of leading and managing. I think there's probably plenty of people who would like me to get better at some other things, but this is the stuff that matters most to me. So cool. Thank you. I will hopefully be in touch before holidays, but I hope you get some time to chill and be with your families over the next couple weeks. And thank you for what you do every day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thanks,
very
Julie.
welcome.
All righty.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.